So, I'm Lance Ray, and I'm going to be evaluating my individual performance in the site-specific piece that we've done, which was performed at Sturchley Baths. So, I'm going to start with what went well. So, I sort of took a directorial role over like the performance, especially when we were at Sturchley Baths, because it seemed like we hadn't had a lot of rehearsal there, and people were a bit kerfuffled and wasn't sure what they were doing. So I kind of took over and like tried to help people where I could, which for me, wanting to go into that type of background was good, and it was a good experience for me to have. My performance throughout our actual piece I felt was good. We were all in time together. I made sure that the emotion that we wanted to give to the audience was coming across the way we wanted it to. I had that role like in my piece with my group, but I also took the role of kind of hosting the event. So I was the first person that the audience saw and spoke to, and I only actually knew I was going to do that about 20 minutes before the show started, because Kelly wasn't sure how she was going to start it, and it turned out that I was starting it. So that was a bit of a shock, a bit like oh my gosh, what am I even going to say? But I'm kind of confident when speaking to people, and it doesn't matter if there's like 2 people or a crowd of 100, it doesn't really matter, it's just speaking. So I tried to make sure that I was articulate and was loud enough, because it was in the middle of a street where the show starts, so I needed to make sure, and it's quite a busy street, so I needed to make sure that everyone would hear me. The information I was giving to the audience was a bit unclear. I was a bit not overwhelmed, but I was just not sure what I was supposed to say, because Amy then writes the facts on the floor in front of the audience, so I didn't want to give too much away. So in my head I was just doing the brief things. So I mentioned that it was a bathhouse, because that's what the original building was. I think I mentioned that it was an Edwardian style. I mentioned that it was a first aid post in the war, and that now they do a lot of activities here, and also that it was turned into a dance hall. I wanted to give the audience little inklings of what they might see in the show. So we have a performance that's about the first aid post. We have a performance about the dance hall. Amy sets the scene with the dates and everything. So it kind of made it flow. But I feel like if I was to do that again, I could have done it 100% better if I was prepared. But for not being prepared, I was pretty proud of myself, because the audience understood what I was trying to tell them. After that part, I then move on to a part in the hallway where it's like an introduction that flows then into our performance, into my group's performance. This was just like a little waltz part, which I do with Abby. It wasn't really a big part that mattered, so I just do a lift, and then we all gather in our room, which we chose to perform in the cinema room, which was the actual bathhouse where they took the baths. We chose that because there was a nice tile wall, which I had an idea of projections, and they kept like speaking to me that I wanted projections on walls, and I wanted them to feel like it was drowning and we were in water. So that's why we chose that room. The only thing I would change was that it felt like the audiences at the back didn't really see the waltz. It was only the people at the front, which is fine. But also I'd like the whole experience to be fair. I want the experience to be the same for every single person. I want them to give the opportunity that I've put it out there. You take it how you like it, but at least you've seen it. After the piece, which did go well, there was nothing that went wrong. We did think there was going to be a problem with the projector, because it didn't, if you use 2 projectors, they kind of shadow each other, so you get a dark line in the middle. But luckily Aspen fixed that, and we're all fine. And once that was done, it was like a weight off our shoulders, because it was the only thing that was wrong with our performance. Everything else went well, very well. Straight after that, we then move into the contemporary dance piece after another group, which is it was my idea as well to move to take the audiences from room to room, and then for us to do a dance in the Great Hall. It was kind of, I wanted it to be, I kept saying that I wanted it to just appear and then disperse. I was going with the motion of waves because it's a swimming pool, so I wanted it to appear but then go just as fast as it did. I do generally feel like my performance could have been better in the dance. It was a little bit of we hadn't rehearsed in there, so it was a bit, oh my gosh, am I standing in the right place? Is there going to be enough room for the other group? Which it turned out there wasn't enough room for the other group, but it was kind of a fresh feeling that we all got from performing it because we'd done it for the first time there. I would have liked more practice, but that's just what happens. I do feel like I could have done better in the dance, but again, it wasn't a problem. It wasn't notable for the audience, but for me personally, I could have done better. I just could have put more emotion and a lot more technique, I think, and challenged myself a bit more. There was a part where we do the motifs and we take a segment, a part of a movement, and we just repeat it. And I only seem to repeat about 2 of these movements, and I could have done the whole of the dance, just repeated it again. But again, I was trying to keep it simple and to refine the simpleness. After that, my next role was to host the immersive part, which I was excited about because the immersive part felt like it was my baby, because I sort of came up with the idea and also tried to help every group. So it seemed like I was the most knowledgeable on that area. So it just made sense that I'd host it. Again, it was audience interactive, so I couldn't really rehearse what I would say, and I kind of like to improvise things, so I didn't want to have a script and be looking at the script looking at the script instead of actually speaking to the audience. So I said the basics, what immersive was, and the fact that we had the building to ourselves. We want the audience to have their control over the building now, because it feels like once you go to Search Bath, your mark is in the building. There's still the marks from the people that used to swim there. There's still the feeling that this place was bigger and much more than it is now. And we wanted to bring that back. So there was activities going on that I mentioned, and then I was just around the building to help people if they needed to find where they were going, because it was a museum type feeling, so they could wander and go into each room and find an activity. The thing I would change about that was after doing it, I would have more activities for them to do. We had about 5 activities for the audience to take part in, but they were only short, and it felt like a lot of the audience were then wanting more, which was a good thing. But I just wish that we would have maybe had a practice audience so we could see that more might have been better in this situation. Me helping people around the building wasn't a problem. I did kind of hold back a little bit because I didn't want to be too in people's faces and hi, do you need help? Do you need this? Do you want me to help you with this? I just waited until I felt like somebody, because there was a lot of people there to see, family members who are in my class. So I would go up and say who are you here to see? Because I don't want them to miss out on seeing their son or their daughter. But I also wish that there was a lot more of the community that came to see the piece. That was probably down to the marketing team, because they didn't really market the show very well, but I only think that because the performance was made for the community, and it's a community centre now, so I would expect more of the community to come. But again, we can't change it now. But if I was to do it again, I would have gone into the shops, because there's quite a thriving shopping place around there, a lot of community stuff. So I feel like we should have gone and got the community in, but it's happened now. My group's immersive part, which was mainly my input really. I felt like although we were in a swimming pool and a swimming baths, we wasn't using water, and that really mattered to me because water is a huge part of the building. A swimming baths, a bathhouse, a sauna, they all link with water, and no other group was using water. So I said, okay, immersive, let's have water. So we had the big bowls of water, which we called troughs, because I think they're called troughs, but troughs filled with water, and 3 of the girls would play with the water. As I was walking around, I couldn't stay in the room because I was there to help. I was there to help other people, but as I was walking around, people really, really enjoyed it. People were getting involved with the water, playing with it, because I wanted them to see the joyful side of water, but also the terrifying and the sort of like a bit wary side of theatre, and this was represented through the 3 characters of the girls. On the other side of the room, there was then Tal, who had these 2, let's say like gingerbread shaped men, and in there they wrote the old community and what they thought it was, and what Sturchley was then and what it is now, and then we would gift them back to Sturchley. It was a great idea, but I feel like because I was so focused on the water, I didn't focus as much on that part, which meant that it wasn't great quality paper, and then it wasn't really presentable enough to give back to Sturchley, which was the plan, which we did, but it still wasn't the plan. I just wish maybe we'd have done it on a canvas, or just made it a lot more presentable, maybe in a frame. The other groups had something that we could give to Sturchley. So one group had a poppy, and it was made with fingerprints, and the audience could get involved with that. That we gave back to Sturchley. So that was a nice token of that we've been here, and the audience have had their mark, and now you can have it back. Thank you for our time. That felt a nice thing to give back to Sturchley, like a thank you. But I just wish that we would have been there in the group to get more stuff and to make it a lot more presentable. I wouldn't change anything about my performance, just the speeches that I did to the audiences. Not that they were bad and not that they were awful. I was articulate. I spoke slowly, like so that everyone could understand. I just wish I was more informative, but I think it worked the way I did it. I think personally, I just would like it to be more informative, but apart from that, everything went well. And I was proud of my performance and the performance of my peers. There was a very good vibe around the building. Every audience member seemed fully engaged with the building, which was the main point of the site-specific piece. Yes, it was about us performing there, but we were there to highlight the building and what the building was and what the building is now. And I do feel like the audience got that. There was a lot of questions being asked. There were interacting with questionnaires that we had up on the walls. Everyone wanted to know more about the building, which was perfect. We wanted them questions to be asked. We wanted the questions to be answered. And every member of the audience that we spoke to really enjoyed their time at Sturchley and really enjoyed being with the history. And a lot of them had never visited Sturchley before, like members of families that come from the other side of Birmingham have never visited Sturchley. I had never been to Sturchley. And at first it was like, I don't even know where Sturchley is, but now people do, and that's great. But then there's also the part where people, Abby, who was in my group, her mum actually used to swim at Sturchley Baths, and she hadn't been back since the renovation, since it's now a community centre, and it was nice for her to be there, and it brought back childhood memories. Like our performance really honed in on her childhood memories of swimming there and enjoying herself and playing in the baths, but also feeling the danger from the water, which felt perfect, especially from a director's point, but also a performer's point of view. It felt strong.